Which one was with me?
No.
I know. I regret that.
All right. We will call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:03 PM. Board has land acknowledgement anti-racism statement that are posted to the website. Roll call tonight. Keith's got an excused absence and I've not heard from Brian. And he is not here. First item is the adoption of the agenda. Sonia, you sent an email.
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend the agenda to add item 7E, discussion on the dates for the town hall and candidate forums.
Any objections? All right, hearing none, we'll add that to the agenda. I make a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, that passes. First item on the agenda then is the consent agenda. Are there any objections to the minutes on the consent agenda?
Hey, I got to look at them this week earlier. I made all my corrections already.
All right.
Put that in the minutes, please.
No objections. So the consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is announcements. Do we have any announcements?
I will announce at least the candidates. I
Microphone.
lost track of when we have announcements.
Can you speak into the
Right.
microphone?
Have to use this. I forget it. So just to confirm that we have the following candidates for the Board of Directors: Lori Robinson, Keith McLean, Joshua Bowens, Tom Rudd, and Mary Stidham. We have two candidates for ACC, Pat Zwolensky and Joe Jean Koss, and then one candidate for NNE, Rob Gibbs. And I was going to announce candidate forums, but I know that we now have an issue for a little bit later in the meeting.
Any other announcements? All right, hearing none, we'll move to property owner comments. Any property owner comments? Nobody here, so I'm assuming none. And we'll move to the general manager's report. Ryan?
Thank you. SPCA's focus in August was on maintaining pools, marina, and trails while preparing for and hosting the 50th anniversary celebration. We experienced truly exceptional weather, which allowed the community to enjoy our amenities without interruption and in their best conditions. I have a brief update on pools. The 2023 main pool season is over, and preliminary financial reports for July indicate that SPCA collected more than $12,000 in pool fees during the first 3 months, 2.5 really, of the season. This is 70% higher than budgeted and comparable to total pool income for 2022, which was $12,900. An estimate of August pool income shows a year-to-date total of $17,687, which represents a year-over-year increase of 37%. While some of the increase can be attributed to higher fees, recall that the board approved pool fee increases of 15% in April. Most of the additional revenue came from a simple higher volume of non-members purchasing pool passes. Given the high cost of maintaining the pool, it is very encouraging to have this external revenue to defray some of the costs. Over the past 2 weeks, we've received many requests from members asking that the quiet pool remain open until the end of this month, September. After speaking with Sesco, our pool management partner, and maintenance, I estimated that it would cost about $500 a week for chemicals, oversight, labor, and utilities, and made the decision to keep the pool open as requested. If, however, overnight temperatures start to drop into the 40s, the cost of heating the pool will increase very significantly, and we will have to close the pool at that point. But as long as the weather is in our favor, people can continue to swim in the quiet pool.
Until the end of the month, correct?
Just until the end of the month. Yes, no polar club here. Thunder Peak, SPCA has received several complaints regarding unpermitted construction on Thunder Peak Way. The association is working with both legal counsel and the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office to ensure that the restrictive covenants are upheld. Water lilies. I have reported in previous months that maintenance had a plan for the removal of water lilies in Lake Louise. In early August, three workers spent an entire day clearing about 100 feet of easily accessible shoreline near the Welcome Center. We did this as a test to see how well the planned approach would work. While somewhat effective, the manual technique to cut the lilies at the base was extremely challenging for workers. Since other areas of the Lake Louise shoreline are even more challenging to navigate, we paused our work on this task. A little background on lily pads and water lilies in general. They're a Class C noxious weed, and the Whatcom County Noxious Weed Control Board states that control is difficult and eradication may be unrealistic. Our experience certainly supports that statement. Lily pads are so prevalent that property owners are under no obligation to remove them. That's throughout the county. Based on the depth of the lake, lily pads have likely encroached as far as they are going to in Lake Louise, since lily pads grow in a water depth of less than 6 feet. If manual removal is not feasible, the county recommends spraying, which requires a permit to complete the work and a licensed technician to apply the product that is used. SPCA has been looking for a vendor to provide a quote for this work for the past 2 months with no success. Also, while permitted spraying is legal, it may not be acceptable to the community. And one of the steps in obtaining that permit is to send a letter to every residence within 1/4 mile of the spraying site to alert them to the spraying and to ask for their public comments. That's a lot of homes. For 2023, we simply don't have the resources to attempt to manually control lily pads throughout Lake Louise. So we have adopted a targeted approach with the goal of keeping specific access points open for recreation, specifically the boat launches. For 2024, if water lily removal continues to be a high priority for the community and spraying is not an acceptable option, I suggest that we plan a water lily removal event similar to what SPCA does for Firewise. This would allow us to request funding, hire appropriate temporary labor, and clear a much larger area of the lake. Unfortunately, though, we'd have to do that every year to maintain the progress. The remainder of the report shares highlights for each of the active departments. The capital projects update was not received in time to make it into this report, but I will share it with the group and add it to my report on the website either later this week or early next week. Thank you.
All right, any questions?
Mr. President, I have a couple of questions. So with the water lilies, I know that they're in that, just here by the road up here, they're in that little area down there where the pump is for the irrigation. Do they affect the operation of that at all? The Lake Louise is really low right now.
So I can answer that if you don't have any information. So earlier this year, you may remember in one of the GM reports that I shared that some community members had been concerned that the golf course was taking out too much water. So I investigated how deep the lake was, and the lake is so deep in the middle and has so many gallons of water that we could never pump as much out of it as would be needed to make even a dent in it. So the borders of the lake are shallow. Where all the lilies are growing, they're only 6 feet, but it's more than 50 feet deep at the middle of that lake. And there is no way we could pump enough water. To answer your specific question, the pipe to the pumping station doesn't end where you think it does. Where that area is, that's right next to the road as you drive up here, that's the dam. That's where they open it to let excess water out in the wintertime. But the pipe to pick up water for irrigation is closer to the Welcome Center. There's a big concrete bunker right there by the trail, one of the
Gotcha.
trailheads
Okay.
for Lake Louise Trail. That's the pumping station, and the pipe goes out of that pumping station. You can see the pipe in the water because it's quite clear, and it goes all the way into the middle of the lake. So it's pulling from that very deep area. So it's not impacted by lilies. It's not impacted by the receding banks. The system is safe from that risk.
Okay, that was one of my questions because I didn't know where that came from. And you mentioned that to keep the boat launches open from water lilies, are they? I would assume our launches are deeper than 6 feet.
Well, you launch from the shore, so they're not deeper than 6 feet. So these are not like boat launches like the marina boat launches. These are the kayak launches where you just need 8 or 10 inches to float.
I'm sorry, that's why when you said launches, I'm like, wait a minute here.
But there are several stations around Lake Louise off the trail where, well, first of all, we have kayak racks at one of the locations, and then by the gazebo,
Yep.
there's another launch area, and then many residents are choosing to launch directly from the Welcome Center because it's easy to drive in and you don't have to drag your kayak too far.
Okay, I just was curious what you meant by that. Thank you.
Gail?
You, just quickly, Joanne, how deep did you say Lake Louise is at its steepest? I didn't catch it.
How deep is it, Nancy?
There's an old fishing map from the 1940s on the state's website under Lakes of Washington. And I believe it was 62 was the deepest, but more than 50 is a pretty good statement.
Yeah, that's what I was confident saying. More than 50.
All right, yeah, thank you.
It's pretty deep.
Mhm.
Encouraging.
That's good.
So who's going to make the decision on if you, I mean,
Well, I guess my message in that section of the report is that we have tried what we could this year. We tried the manual removal and it is effective, but it is very resource heavy and it's exhausting work. There is no reason why we couldn't acquire temporary labor and do that in a much broader area. But we don't have the resources to do that this year. We need to organize it like we would a Firewise and get approved budget, have additional materials on hand, that cutting device. We'd need more of those, all that stuff. So we could do that next year and I can bring it up back to the board in the early part of the year when it's appropriate.
yeah, that's what I was going to say, because you're impacting the budget on something that may not be super high priority
Precisely.
for everybody. So yeah, I think it'd be important to make sure that we discuss it before we impact.
The county stand on it is that they are a noxious weed, which means they're sort of irritating and they're not great for the environment, but they're as a class C weed, C, not like see the letter, not SCA. It means that we're not required to remove them and leaving them in place isn't creating a hazard. It's more of an irritant and
They're like blackberry.
there you go.
They're like blackberry. So prevalent, there's nothing you could do to get rid of them anyways. I mean, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I just actually had a question about Thunder Peak because when I was looking at some stuff earlier this year, my understanding that police and the sheriff will not help with anybody, like if there's a homeless encampment on your property. I'm just wondering if we're kind of trying to figure out a plan because if we do have someone trying to camp out on our property, we need, this is where we need to start. If we start letting one person get away with it, it's going to spread. I'm just wondering.
Absolutely. Yeah. Many of the details regarding this specific incident aren't appropriate for public release. I do have a more detailed report that I can share with the board when we meet in closed session to answer your more specific questions. But in general, you're exactly right, Taimi. An individual who does not have land or title to the land can't necessarily squat on it. And we can ask the sheriff to trespass them if we know we have clear title to the land that's involved. The Thunder Peak situation is a little more complex. because the individual that is beginning unpermitted construction does have a deed to that land. He owns a lot. Of course, he doesn't have permission to build, but that's a separate issue. It's a civil matter that is handled a little bit differently. So there are some, as I said, more details about this, but we are pursuing the recourse that we do have as an association, both legally and financially, and with the sheriff. So basically, we need to show the property lines and show proof of ownership of the specific plots of land involved. And at that point, the sheriff's deputies will be able to help us by trespassing individuals who are on a lot owned by Sudden Valley.
So just curious if he's got materials, and I mean, I don't know the whole story, obviously. I'm just, know what I'm seeing. If he's putting materials on Sudden Valley property, can we remove them? And hold them somewhere? I mean, we don't have to dispose of them, but can we just pick them up? Because that's gonna, be a discouraging factor for him.
There are some other issues involved with that. And until I have the legal direction to pursue various courses of action, I have a hierarchy of steps that I've outlined, and I need to work through steps 1, 2, and 3 before I get to 4, 5, and 6. So that is absolutely on the list. It's just, we're just not there yet. Thank you.
Closed session.
Mr. President, I'd like to recommend that we have a closed session at our next board meeting. And at that time, the general manager can report to us about this. I think, by then she'll have more information, and I think it's important to know what's going on.
Fine. We have already planned that.
Just confirming.
Was that a motion? Okay,
Just a suggestion.
okay.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on to continuing business. We have the approval of the ballot and election booklet proofs. So that got sent out to everyone. There were some emails back and forth today.
So I've received from Gail, thank you, specific direction to remove Michelle as the middle name from Lori Robinson in the 2 locations where it appears, once on the ballot and again in the election booklet. So that change is received and will be recorded.
Thank you.
Also, Gail has suggested that on the ballot under candidates for the N&E committee, we remove choose no more than 3, since there is just 1 candidate.
English major strikes again.
And then both Linda and Gail wanted confirmation of the backside of the return envelope. And that's the special sheet that I handed out. I got that late in the day. As I explained in email, that is not printed in advance, so there's no artwork for it per se. It's printed at the same time the name, address, and control numbers are printed on that side of the envelope. It's all printed inkjet, one at a time. So we have a mock-up for you to look at and review. The language, which I know is of concern, that we get the right statement printed there regarding when the ballots should be mailed. There's an exhortation there to mail
Yeah.
early and on.
You want to read that?
Yeah, so it says, important, if mailing your ballot, mail as early as possible to ensure it's received at Inspector of Elections P.O. Box well before deadline of 12 p.m. November 3rd, 2023. Now that language came from Unilect, and I think it's too wordy, but I know there were several versions bouncing around, and I thought that it would be appropriate for the board to give me direction on that at this time. Those were the only changes.
Linda, then Gail, then Sonia.
I've still got some. I just didn't send them in. Thought we were supposed to bring them. We're missing a logo from on the cover. Usually there's a Sudden Valley logo in the middle of the cover.
Oh,
And if you'd look at the at the actual agenda, please, at the title up there, it says Notice of Annual General Meeting, November 4th, 2024. That should be 2023.
Good pickup.
oh, I see. 2023.
A minute, I'm working on it. And then if I go to page 14, there's a thing where it says replacement ballots. If you need to replace your mail-in ballot or do not receive by October 4, it says. But then on page 15, at the very last paragraph, it says if you need to replace your ballot or do not receive a ballot by October 6th. And I think that the back of the ballot also says the 4th. I'm just trying to confirm, is the 4th the date, not the 6th? Gail and
It's the fourth.
I didn't pick that up, Linda.
It's the fourth.
So,
Do
so
I?
on page 14, I'm sorry, on page 14, it says October the 4th for a replacement ballot, and the other page,
page 15, the very last portion, last paragraph, if you need to replace your ballot or do not receive a ballot by October 6th, all these dates should be the same.
same, yeah, so I will change page 15 to read October the 4th.
Okay, the only other thing I have, and it's long, I have saved it.
So this is why we were trying to do it ahead of time so we could do the final approval tonight. It wasn't complicated changes prior to.
It's when I get time to do it and feel like it. So, and you don't have to put it in there if you want. We have that whole section that's part of page 3 that deals with describing that if you want to vote your whole ballot, that you have to be a member in good standing. One thing that probably a lot of new people in here don't know is what is a member in good standing? And there's another section of the bylaws, which is in section find it. I'm in trouble. I'm sorry, guys. It's just, there's another section that describes what being a member in good standing is. It's in, I think, Article 1, Section 2. And I wondered if we might add that in there. It's just, it describes what a member is. It's Article 1, Section 2A. And it would go below that first one where it describes that how that a member is entitled to vote. Is it just simply says a member in good standing is any person who is current in the payment of all annual dues and assessments and all special assessments, blah, blah, blah. It says, and that if each such member has made payment in full or has entered into a written payment plan authorized by the board, it just explains what that is, because I would be willing to bet I could go out and knock on 5 doors and 5 people would tell me I don't know exactly what a member in good standing is. And I thought about adding that in there. It's just a cut and paste and there's room in there for it because it's not real long. It just took me a while to find all this.
I'm just noting the changes.
So- I actually think that so we added this one section, then we're going to add another section. Now it's just going to be really wordy and we're going to lose the invitation to come to the annual general, like if you put a whole lot of words on that sheet of paper, nobody's going to read that page. Like if you're trying to emphasize them, you get one vote per lot. That's what we said was mattered, like that's what we said. And then it talks about all members, including those who are not in good standing, may vote on the proposed budget in person or by ballot. So perhaps you could potentially asterisk or shorten what member in good standing means? Like good standing, you say good standing is defined as a member who, what did you just say it was?
I understand. And then you put in, it's just. That's what it looks like when it's all printed out, that little section that's yellow. That's the section of the bylaws. I just think people, we're told, you're told that if you're not in good standing, things have changed to where the last time in 2021, when I did NNE, we vetted people. If people weren't in good standing, someone from staff contacted them and told them that they could bring their who's current to be able to vote on everything. And I don't think a lot of people really clearly understand that. And now that it's changed, it's just, we say you have to be in good standing, but what does that mean? Somebody on a payment plan might think, that's not me, I'm on a payment plan. But if you're on a payment plan and you're current, it does apply to you. You can hand that to Joanne if you want, AJ. It's just, that's what I'm concerned with.
I think it'll probably be okay with that length.
We don't know about spacing because remember that booklet is half page. So
Looked at it.
you really don't know what the spacing is going to be on the going from full page to half page. And I agree with Sonia in that the more stuff you put on a page, the less it will be read. There's nothing like seeing a full page of 10-point font stuff to go and read none of it. But the good standing thing is a good point, and it could go on the website under information, because you've got that button that says AGM, at least you used to.
It's there, but everything's 2022. I just think
But
it's important for the members who are voting to understand that.
it is, and they can find it on the website too,
And maybe you just put a paragraph in there that says, additional information on the AGM website,
that's,
and that would work for me. I just think very
Uh-huh.
few people understand that at all.
You have any suggestions, Joanne? You're pretty good at visualizing that stuff.
I wouldn't object to adding it, but I do agree with the comments that have been made about the more you write, less people read. But I think Sonia's comment about making sure that we emphasize the invitation, we could potentially bold that to make that stand out at the bottom of the page, and then people's eyes could sort of just slip over the legalese and go to the YouTube part.
I'm just thinking they're going to be less likely to go to the website, figure it out than they are to read that. I mean, if you're looking at which one they're going to do more, they're obviously there's a bigger chance they're going to read the ballot.
I have to say that many calls each day are answered by, oh, that's on our website. Oh, you've never been to the website? Well, let me walk you through how to go to it and how to find it on the website. So I think the website's a great resource, but having it in your hand is also very good.
There's a couple of last things, but I don't know how critical they are. One, I think, is on page 7, under factors impacting the 2024 budget, it says the last bullet, a roads budget contribution of $107,096 for the CBC. If I look at that spreadsheet we were given this year, the 2024 amount is $125,320, not $107. So that's one thing. And on page 8, oh dear, I'm sorry. The third paragraph, it says the 2024 budget year level 1, it should be changed to level 3. It's just something somebody overlooked when they inserted the new
All right, so we had a,
Um,
outside of the one thing, those are mostly just minor edits, right? So we have a
Correct.
suggestion to add the member in good standing definition from the bylaws. Guess we just want to vote who's all in favor of that and who's not. Just handle it that way.
Okay.
All in favor of adding that language? One,
I'm okay.
two.
So Joanne, will you see another, this is it though, we won't see another proof, right? So it
Yeah,
may or
she
may
can
not.
Send it with
fit.
corrections.
Yeah, I will send this back. I'll make the corrections after the meeting. So hopefully it won't go till midnight. And then in the morning, I'll call Catherine to ensure
Will
that
you
I.
be
can-
able to discuss with her, like, does this actually fit the page? Blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm good with it then.
The rest of it's just little itty bitty things.
Well, I do want to, I'll look up the amount for the road thing.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
pulling up the
confirm that with
budget
her.
right now, so we want to make sure that we have the correct number.
Gail, did you have a comment? I'm sorry.
Well, I did, my recall, the last time we discussed the member in good standing, and it actually came from AJ, I believe, is that you supported the notion of just including the bylaw language. And
Gail,
sorry, I forget about this thing. The ice cream cone. Okay, so my recall, the last time we went through this, AJ, is that you were supportive of just including the bylaw change. You thought it'd be the most straightforward way. That's my recall on that. And I believe I had sent that language in, but was told it existed elsewhere in the ballot booklet. So at any rate, I'm glad that we're voting to include it. I think it's a good move. And since I have the floor quickly, I also remember that, and we've gone back and forth a bit on this, that there seemed to be a consensus of many on the board not to use a date. That also was your position, AJ, but that we would use the other communication, announcements, the views, and et cetera, to let people know advisable dates. And I'm okay with that. I didn't expect to see any language here because I thought that we had declined to do that, but it's in very small.
I'm not even sure what language you're speaking about.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the language on the back of the envelope that has appeared now. Some language about mail early and et cetera. And there was a question, I thought, about that perhaps from Joanne.
Yeah, that's what Uniloc provided.
Right. Well, number one, I think that font is really tiny and hard to read. But number two, then my recall of our discussion is that we were not going to provide a date in the ballot booklet or on the back of the envelope. We were going to communicate using other forms.
So we
Yeah.
all reached consensus
that's
that we
what-
weren't going to include a date. That's
That's
what
my
happened.
recall.
I didn't put that sentence on the ballot envelope, if that's what you're trying to.
Initially, I wanted to put a date there because I thought it would keep people from on November 2nd, putting it in a mailbox, right? Because it's not going to make it. But I'm just sharing my recall and perceptions. I do think if we're going to go with this language, though, they should increase the font.
So I apologize. I printed it in portrait and it's a PDF in landscape. So it reduced the size of it slightly. You have to imagine it at the size of the larger envelope.
Okay,
It literally came in as I was leaving the office to come
Okay.
here.
Is there anyone opposed to Linda's suggestion on adding the member in good standing? Are you opposed?
as long as it fits without an added page.
Agreed.
Okay, so we're adding that language.
So the other thing is
You know, are you wanting to have a discussion on whether that sentence should be on the back of the envelope? Is that what you're asking or what?
no, I'm not. I'm just,
The Statement was,
ambiguous. No, I thought we had decided not to use a date and that we were going to use other means of communication. And I'm sharing my recall as part of the discussion.
I think we're still going to use that other communication if I recall correctly. We're still going to do the e-blasts and that and remind people.
The date we were using, the only date we agreed to use was the date they needed to be at Unilac by.
Right. So I don't think the envelope statement has a date except for it says,
Mail early
right? It
Right.
says,
or
it's
has to be received by.
just says mail as early as possible. So it gets here by November 3rd.
Well, I'd hope,
They're telling you the date it has to be received by, not the date you need to mail it by.
right, but in more informal communication, I would like to propose some dates. And I can do that in a views article. We could do it as an announcement. It suggested that.
Yeah, I don't have any concern with that.
Yeah, okay, so
That's what we all talked about last meeting or the meeting before, I think.
Right. So
exactly.
are you suggesting that we don't need any statement on the envelope?
I don't,
I thought that that's where the discussion had ended.
my
But I
notes-
don't mind. This seems, pretty neutral, not terribly helpful because mail early is so subjective. But maybe it's helpful. I'm just, agnostic on this. I don't care if it's there.
I accept this language. If we're taking a vote. I think it's fine, especially Unilever probably sent it through their legal counsels, or either this is some language they use, all the time that's been vetted. And so I would rather us not touch it and leave it like that.
microphone.
Sorry, I was just talking to her, just confirming that she's fine with the language on there as long as we have additional information that goes out to members.
Yeah, I have no issues with any sort of communication plan regarding it, so
So I think we're good.
Okay.
anyone else have any issues with it?
No, and I confirm, okay, so just the number that Linda's talking about in that one section about the roads. Is this, it was written as this year's number, it should say what she said, 125, 320,000. So,
125,320.
yeah, 125,320. Sorry, said it all back.
No worries. Okay, so just to be clear, is it okay if I just review every change that I got? Okay, okay. So front page missing a logo.
That tonight.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm
That's the one we don't talk about,
procrastinator.
right?
Okay, on the third page in the packet, but it doesn't have a number. It says at the top, notice of annual general meeting, November 4th, 2023, not 2024. Everyone would be very late. On page 3 by number, we're going to insert Article 1, Section 2A, which Linda has kindly highlighted. And we're going to bold the invitation to view the meeting live on the YouTube channel.
Oh, I know, at the top, there's an invitation that actually just says all members are invited to attend the meeting. It's
Will
at
that
the-
be
it's the
bolded
first-
as
yeah,
well?
That's the one. You think bold in the YouTube thing too?
Not the YouTube.
Yeah, okay. Because we want people for the quorum, right? So we'll bold the top invitation, not the thing at the bottom. Okay. Then we have a page with no changes. And 5 has no changes, 6 has no changes, 7 has the changes for the CBC in the last bullet point under factors impacting the 2024 budget. On page 8, it's a level 3 reserve study. Does anyone call you Eagle Eye?
My job was I was the last person that got to do any of the bids that came out of our company. And let me tell you, I have learned you read and it takes time. It just takes time.
On page 12, we're going to delete Michelle as the middle name for Lori Robinson. On page 15, the date at the bottom is going to be October the 4th, 2023. And that is the set of changes for the election booklet.
Make a motion that we approve the election booklet with the stated changes that we just went over.
Second.
All those in favor? We're getting Stu's on here. Stu, did you vote yes? Okay, that's vote approved unanimously. All right, we will move on to the new business.
Excuse me, I think we have the ballot.
Yeah, we have the ballot. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yep. My bad. All right. So we have the ballot. Do we have any discussion, suggestions, changes?
Just Gail's change.
Right, to remove the middle name of Lori, make her
Right.
Lori Robinson.
And
Right.
to remove the vote three.
Choose no more than 3 from N and E.
Yes, thank you.
Those are the only 2 changes received.
Any others? All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the ballot proof with those 2 minor changes.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. All right,
And are we leaving this statement or deleting statement on the, leaving the
I
statement?
think we decided to leave it.
Thank you.
All right, now we are moving on to new business, and the first item is a capital request for the Marina Boat Launch Dock Contract Award. Pass it to Joanne.
Thank you. The purpose of this memo is to request contract award and change order for capital code 9719.20 for the Marina Boat Launch Dock. On May 25th, 2023, the project was brought forward to the board for funding approval based on the engineer's estimate and P and W summary letter. Reference board packet from 5/25/23 for a summary of the information. A note here, Linda called out that the engineer's estimate was omitted from the backup, and I provided that to the board in a separate email. The permit was approved by Whatcom County on August 7th and will be issued upon a contractor being designated to complete the project. P&W issued the project for bid on 8/18/23 to 5 contractors, and quotes were received from 3 of them. As per P&W summary, Wiki Brothers Construction is the apparent low bidder with a total bid of $113,139.48. The engineer's estimate with WSST, Washington Sales Tax, was $210,910.97. This leaves a project savings that can be credited back to SURF in the amount of $97,771.49. My request is that the board authorize the general manager to execute SVCA's standard construction contract with Wiki Brothers Construction for this project with a not to exceed amount of $113,139.48. And secondly, to authorize the finance manager to credit $97,771.49 from capital code 9719.20 back to the SURF account.
All right, do we have any discussion? Just 2 motions at the end, I think, since there's multiple. Linda?
I've got a couple of questions. So if we return the 97,771.49, is that gonna zero out the, it would be nice to know where we stand, because we started out with 266,000. As of June, we were down to 221,364. So I guess I'm wondering what's outstanding besides the construction, that low bid of the contractor. Because they're in, even in that bid that was submitted by PNW, there's still other costs from PNW themselves and Ashton Engineering that are still part of the construction part of the contract. I just don't know where we're at all.
Yeah, so those dollars will remain funded. We're, we're only taking out the difference between the engineer's estimate and the real construction estimate that we'd got from Wiki. And that leaves the other dollars intact to pay for Ashton Engineering, some oversight, and PNW management.
Okay, and then I'm assuming that part of that money is for the permitting, because that was done in August, is already in
Spend,
something beyond this June number that I have in the capital report.
yes.
Okay, it's just really hard to know where we're at, that's all.
Yeah, none of the documents are at the same point in time, so it can be confusing, but you have the correct understanding.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have a quick question, AJ. I'm just curious why there is such a large discrepancy between the engineer's estimate and the bid that came in. Do we know what that's attributed to?
Yes,
Coming from the perspective that we want the dock built correctly.
yes, second time's a charm, hopefully. I had that same reaction, and so I spoke with Tyler Andrews about it, and he indicated that Wiki has done several projects recently of this in this area. And so their mobilization costs were lower than some of the other vendors. And that's because they're used to doing this work. They don't have to retool or think too hard about it because they have recent experience in this area. The other factor that Tyler cited as a probable reason for why their bid was low is that because they are doing many similar projects to this one, that instead of buying a 20-foot long pipe to get 3.5 feet, they probably have that 3.5 foot pipe left over. And just because they're doing more work in this area, they can be a little bit more cost competitive. Of the 5 contractors that were invited to bid, 2 of them were recommended by Ashton Engineering and 3 were chosen by PNW. And all of them have excellent reputations and are qualified to do the work in the area. So I checked on that because there was quite a significant difference. And Tyler gave me more details about how these contractors were selected to participate in the bid. And then he answered my questions about Wiki that I just shared with you.
Great, thanks, Joanne.
I would venture to guess too, potentially that just the timing of it and the project. My hunch tells me Tiger's potentially a bit more busy than Wiki at the moment. And that's why you're seeing like slightly higher unit prices and stuff between the low bid and those other ones. So I wouldn't be surprised if that factors into.
I think it might be markup. Because if you look at the selected contractor and the architect's cost for materials, they're really close. You know, I think Wiki can get under some of that a little bit. And it might be that the architect did a little bit of markup. I don't know, but it's really, he's definitely the lowest for materials, but he's right within that range. I think the place I see a lot of difference is in labor. Big difference in labor. Big. And I think the architect probably used, you know, if you look, he uses some really hefty numbers for labor costs and stuff. And I think that's probably where you see the biggest difference.
Yeah, labor's been on the fly changing rapidly too over the last several years, so. Any other discussion? All right, make some motions here then. I move that the board of directors authorize the general manager to execute Sudden Valley Community Association standard construction contract with Serwecki Brothers Construction with a not to exceed amount of $113,139.48.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Make a second motion. Move that the board of directors authorizes the finance director to allocate $97,771.49 from capital code 9719.20 back to the SURF account.
Second.
All those in favor? Passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to the next capital request on new business, which is replacement of turf care shed roof.
Thank you. And please don't tell Joel I demoted him. The purpose of this memo is to request funding approval for replacement of the turf care shed roof. Next to the turf care maintenance shop is an open shed used to store sand. The roof on this shed needs to be replaced. The shed is approximately 40 feet by 20 feet. The existing roof is asphalt shingles, and the proposed roof for replacement will be a metal roof to match the metal roof installed at the Area Z Tall Barn. The existing plywood underlayment will also be replaced as part of the project, and new fascia boards will be installed. The replacement of this roof will preserve the building and extend its useful life. I request that the board authorize the allocation of $19,021.65 from SURF for the turf care shed roof replacement project per PNW's proposal dated 9/11/23. And that the board authorize the general manager to sign Sudden Valley's standard construction contract with Cool Runnings Construction in the amount of $17,131.65 for the replacement of the turf care storage shed roof.
All right, we got a couple motions again, so I'll just open it up for discussion. Linda, as always.
You know, so we've
Look
got.
right at you every time.
Huh?
I look right at you every time first.
So we have this bid for the roof. If I'm looking at the reserve study and if I'm looking at the spreadsheet that we were given, that's not due to be done until 2024. It's also got like a $3,000 figure on it. And that's even with the updates and stuff. And so I'm just wondering, this is kind of way above.
So it actually was scheduled on, if you look at the current for the 2023 budget, it was scheduled for this year as part of the whole turf refurbishment. Turf kind of delayed that, and we were working off of information that we had that roof could be replaced. They didn't realize the amount of damage underneath, and they thought it just needed new shingles and that 3,000 would cover it. Once, we moved through their busy season and P&W has been out there to look at it, and roofing contractors have had that initial look, then it's been determined that it actually needs, more work to it, and it needs a different type of roof than what it needs better than just those, whatever they're called, asphalt shingles or whatever. So it'll last long term. And so that's the difference. But we were working off of an old, reserve study number, and we had confirmation earlier, like last year, that would work. And what you guys, if you'll notice one thing, you got your reserve studies today, and I'm sure everybody hasn't had time to review them, but we had started making these adjustments last year to kind of try to get these numbers in line. And so some of them aren't exactly accurate. We feel pretty confident that what's in there this year is one of the best reserve studies, and it aligns really, really well with the capital planning. You'll see that it really matches up well. And that doesn't mean that some of these numbers aren't going to be a little off sometimes once they get in there. And that's really what happened with that roof.
I just wanted, it's really a big difference. And I noticed last year it was in there, and then you kind of delayed all of that when they ordered that irrigation equipment. They kind of said, we won't do any more work. And then looking at the new sheets that come with the 2024, all of that had been moved into 2024. Is the work going to be done this year, though?
Mhm. Yeah, it's for this year.
Yeah, the investment in the roof will save the rest of the structure from damage.
Before we go into the winter, it was kind of determined it
Gotcha.
needed to,
You
yeah,
know what that roof looked like? You don't have to,
yeah, yeah.
you don't have to tell me. It's just curious because it's like I say, it's a big difference in price and it had been moved into 2020.
Well, this is why you need the experts to look at things because we were utilizing, like just staff looking at that, turf care staff felt like it was okay. Once P&W, our project manager, went out there and looked at it, like I said, and Mike, our maintenance manager, went out, it was determined that it couldn't last until next year. It needed to be taken care of.
To say heavy snow and it probably wouldn't. There's more moss up there, I think.
I would be supportive of the metal roof concept. I think that's definitely a better way to go just by looking at the pictures. So, yeah, maybe a coat of paint on the outside too, if they got like an afternoon and.
But we'd obscure
There's
that
a nice
hand-drawn
Sun Valley
logo.
Logo there too. Like black and white kind of thing going on. Any other discussion? All right, we'll make some motions here. I'll move that the board of directors authorize the allocation of $19,021.65 from the SURF account for the turf care shed roof replacement per P&W's proposal dated 9/11/23.
Second,
All right, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Make a second motion that the board authorize the general manager to sign Sudden Valley's standard construction contract with Cool Runnings Construction in the amount of $17,131.65 for the replacement of the turf care shed roof replacement.
second,
Sorry, it was written two different ways in those motions. So I was like, try to make it the same on the fly. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to the next new business item, which is the appointment of board representatives for union negotiations. So yeah, basically similar to how we would do committees, we'll be starting up bargaining with the union here shortly. And so Richard, as a legal counsel, is the lead negotiator, and then Joanne will sit on the union or on the bargaining team for Sudden Valley. And then we've typically appointed two board directors to sit at the table with those two individuals. So yeah, I guess I'll just open up the floor to take nominations for appointments. Unless there's any like questions anyone has.
I have a
And-
question. So didn't, Sonia's probably the only one who can answer this. Are they going to meet by Zoom or is this going to be in person now
In
that
person.
it's an in-person meeting?
I nominate Sonia. She's been to the rodeo before.
I nominate Linda Bradley.
I'll nominate Sam Shahan. Any other nominations? All right. So we have 3 nominations for 2 spots. What's the best way to go about that?
Do a hand vote for everybody or a secret ballot? You can do a hand vote or a secret ballot vote.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll just do a hand vote, I guess. Sorry, my brain's a little not working great today. It's been a long day. So we just raise hands for each people, and the people with the two highest totals in hand, so each person can vote for two people out of the three, and whoever has the most, the top two people with hand raises. Is that what we're saying? Okay. All right, so everyone in favor of, I guess I'll just go in order. Everyone in favor of Sonia? 2, 3, 4. Okay, everyone in favor of Linda? 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I forgot about Stu. Stu, what'd you? 4. Okay. Everyone in favor of Sam? Okay, so Sam's on there. All right, so I guess we're deciding between Sonia and Linda then. So. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Guess I'll just open it up for discussion on the topic, maybe to Linda.
Look, if there's three of us and she and I are a tie, she can go. She was there last year. For some reason, she can't go because she's sick or whatever, and they need two. I can be the extra body.
I actually think that's a
Well-
really good idea. We did, because Richard will actually at some, I think soon will come in and talk to the whole board. And I think at one point he had like an alternate last year. So he may ask for that again anyway, you know.
Any objections to that? Okay. I think it's a
Thank
good
you.
idea. All right, Sonia and Sam will be our board representatives. And keep us informed. And yeah, Richard, we'll probably be having some closed session here shortly coming up to go into preliminary discussions that we need to have before we sit down and negotiate. All right, next item on new business then is an approval request. It's a record request policy, and I'll pass it over to Joanne.
Thank you. On July 23rd, 2023, RCW 64.38.045 and RCW 24.03.215A were amended. This new legislation specifically defines what records the association must retain, how long those records should be retained, and how the association must make records available to members who wish to view them. The legislation also defines the responsibilities of the association regarding when and where the records should be made available for members to view, and which data elements must be redacted before records are made available to members, as well as allowing the association to charge a reasonable fee for producing and providing copies of records and supervising the members' inspection of those records. Sun Valley's previous practices concerning the fulfillment of records requests do not comply with the specific direction contained in this new legislation. A new policy is needed to ensure that the association complies with the law. Sun Valley's attorney, Richard Davis, drafted this proposed policy and request form. The policy is detailed, facilitating its implementation and ensuring that the association responds consistently and reliable to all records requests. The policy includes a description of how a fee will be assessed for the work associated with fulfilling a request and grants the designated records officer to waive a fee in situations where little time is required. I request that the SVCA Board of Directors adopt the resolution approving the proposed records request policy.
All right, I'll make a motion that the board of directors adopt the resolution approving the proposed records request policy.
Second.
All right, discussion. Linda and Sonia?
So my first question is, who's the records officer?
Says it in there. It says it's the general manager.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, I missed that.
Eagle eye. Whatever.
I was so busy looking at that.
You're getting,
dumb
you're getting
booklet.
soft, I think. 2 hours into the meeting.
I think the only other thing that I have is on page, I think it's page 6. It says that members, the requester is going to be charged communing with for any communicating with the requester regarding requests that are unclear. You know, I can understand once we get the requests and you're putting them together, but you know, unless it's something really complicated, I don't know why we would have to charge somebody with that. I understand that, well, if somebody sits with them, will they look at the records rather than receive the record by email or whatever?
Well,
But I think that's one thing too many. And I think that we're doing 1/10 of an hour. I think we could do quarter hours or half hours. You know, we don't have any information as to what the rates of pay for these different individuals are that are gonna be handling this. Either from staff. To be able to put that in there, this is what it's gonna cost people. You know, they have a right, the members have a right to know, you know, if let's say I have Joanne and she's 25 an hour for watching me look at documents. Or if I have someone that's higher up or lower pay. But if you're gonna put in there that they're gonna be charged, then we have a right to, then shouldn't we be putting in rates that hour rate, whatever it is, what they are? It's otherwise it's like, here, if you don't like this, tough potatoes, but let's put it in there.
so the intent of getting clarification on the request is that would happen up front. And here's an example. We've had requests in the past that said, I want to see all the invoices for repairs made to the recreational center. Well,
If you wanna go, yeah.
exactly. What's the time frame on that? What's the difference between a repair or routine maintenance? Are you talking about staff time making repairs or just billings from external vendors? So there would be those specific questions to be asked. And sometimes that's a 5-minute conversation because the person with whom you're communicating understands immediately and can hone in. And at other times you really have to explain, well, what do you mean staff time versus an external contractor? Do we use external contractors? And that's a legitimate question if someone hasn't been, you know, monitoring our meetings to understand how we do things. So it could be quite lengthy, but that's the intent, is to clarify up front. And at that point, it mentions that we would ask for a deposit. And at that point, we would be communicating, we think this is a big request that could cost you $500. Do you really want it that bad? Or could we give you a set of information that satisfies, you know, helps you to answer your questions, but maybe would be easier for us to put together for you? So we would give people an understanding of that up front. And I think that's inherent in the deposit section. We're going to ask them for a deposit and communicate about the cost of it so that they can decide whether they want to go forward or not.
Like I say, that's a place where if you want, if people are asking, it may stop people from asking if they realize that, you know, like here you've got 1/10 of an hour. I think a quarter of an hour is more reasonable, or even a half hour. And if you have in there how much that rate is,
But those rates change
it's gonna,
constantly, like as employees come and go or employees get new rates of pay.
Yeah, and some
And I would
requests.
imagine, won't we have to update the fines and fee schedule after we approve this?
Well, I thought about that, and because of the way this is worded, I think we're describing how the estimate would be put together, but that the estimate would be different every time. Because sometimes it's an administrative support person who can pull these records and prepare them. At other times, it's Joel. I mean, and it really depends on the request. So
But we don't need to reflect that, even though it's not a real solid number. Do we not need to reflect in the fines and fee that, you know, refer back to policy XYZ or something like that?
Sure, we could, I guess, but like we would be putting together a cost each time, and that is described in the policy. But referring back to it is a good idea.
Might be good to have it in there, say like that the fee is based on the records officer, implementing this policy kind of thing or something maybe.
That's a good suggestion. And I don't disagree with Linda's suggestion either. I think making it a quarter hour is much easier to track than 10-minute increments, but it makes it a little more expensive too sometimes.
Yeah, I would,
So I would prefer that we don't touch it because it's a very complicated policy and this came from the attorney. And I would prefer that we just don't mess with it and we follow what his recommendation was. That's my opinion.
Nancy.
What about things like house plans that were filed with the SVCA and someone wants a copy of their drawings because they want to apply for a reduced price on the stormwater fee that's charged to them. They need those plans and it's their plans, but now we used to just ask.
Well, the tricky thing about that is the legislation doesn't require us to retain those records or to share them.
Ah,
Now, we've always done that as a policy. And
There's a fee for it.
we've always made the records available and gotten them back. And this policy doesn't preclude us from continuing that practice, but it doesn't specifically call it out either. That's a good point. But our intention was to continue to supply the plans because it is a consistent trickle of requests and people are generally asking for them when they really need them. And there doesn't, it's no big hassle. We bundle them and pull them all at one time.
Are they digital or
No, we have to go dig them out of the,
maybe something we should fund it?
Yeah, where are they?
Mass
Must be in
scanning.
that.
they're in the storage container in the ice barn.
And they can easily be given out as like a digital copy if we scanned them all.
Yes, that would be an excellent project. And if anyone had ever been in that storage container, you would never want to go back because there are boxes of this, that, and the other thing. They're all piled higgledy-piggledy. Some of the, last week we had to use a sledgehammer to open one of the filing cabinets, no lie, because it was rusted shut. Some work to be done there.
AJ, some of those are so faint, it will be a real challenge to scan. But
No, they are what they are, right?
yeah,
Guess we'll just have a pack rat mentality and hang on to them until they're
Dust.
disintegrated. Any other discussion, Linda?
I was just gonna say, but I've looked at mine for my property, but that was back years ago. They were kept in those filing cabinets. Recently, but it's been a while now, when my daughter and son-in-law got their house, there was a dispute with the ACC guy and they were having a fit because a prior owner had added on and they were gonna fine them for it. And this was right after they bought their house. It was horrible. My daughter called me one night in tears and just was beside herself. And I went, we'll go get a copy of it. We'll go to the ACC. They had it grandfathered, but he was able to get a copy. He just had to put down his credit card for $500 to make sure that he returned the drawings. There's older houses in here. And if you buy one and you didn't build it, it'd be interesting to know. I found out there's supposed to be a spiral staircase in my house, not the one that is. Was I excited? You betcha. I wish they would have built it that way. But I'm saying there's lots of reasons for people to access those files.
Absolutely.
It would be a good idea for us to keep something like that. 'Cause sometimes even the county doesn't have those records anymore.
Yeah, I'm not proposing to eliminate that.
I know.
It's not specifically called out in the legislation, but it is a practice that has been present at Sudden Valley as far back as I can see. and it's a very helpful one. So although it's not directly called out in the legislation, I think that the tradition and the practice is in place and it wouldn't be affected by this policy.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sue.
I was just gonna say, it would probably behoove the association if, in her abundance of time, if Joanne could actually put together a proposal to get these professionally scanned into a computer and bring that to the board, as opposed to, having our staff do it or something to that effect. These are obviously important records and we should probably keep them and make sure they're maintained to some extent. And the best way to do that is to digitize it all.
Any other discussion? All right, the motion on the table is that the Board of Directors adopt the resolution approving the proposed records request policy. Any last discussion before we call the question?
Is there a sub motion to change that
Microphone.
1/10 to 1/4?
Gail,
Sorry. How about the issue of 1/10 versus 1/4? I can't vote, but I'm just wondering, is that going to be dropped?
She didn't make a motion. She didn't motion. She just commented. It was just part of the discussion.
But so it's a question for the board.
I personally think, you're going higher, you're just charging people more than, this allows you to round down a little bit more, but yeah, it's all a matter of, just depends, WashDOT will, pay a contractor a large amount of money to get a lane open on.
Of an hour, if I'm not mistaken,
I think that's why he wrote.
why it says what it does.
That's what I-
The rate is going to be much higher.
So,
I would expect. Okay, just I thought maybe, I wasn't sure that people wanted to pick that up.
all right. Any other discussion? Call the question, then the motion is that the Board of Directors adopt the resolution approving the proposed records request policy. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we have one last item, 7E, that we added, candidate forum, town hall date scheduling discussion.
Yes, I asked to add that because two things. So generally, we have the budget town hall meeting and then it's followed by a candidate forum. For instance, last year on October 8th, we did a town hall between 1 and 3. And then the candidate forum was 3:30 to 5:30 here in the dance barn. So the other thing is I would recommend that it be on Saturday, October 7th. Not sure why we're choosing a Sunday, but we don't generally do those on Sunday. And it requires a lot of staff time to come in and set up and spend the entire day. And some of our staff do not work on Sundays. And especially our finance director who needs to be at the budget town hall meeting. So I am asking that we put the candidate forum that Gail is requesting for Sunday, the 8th, on Saturday, the 7th, and do the town hall the same day. The other thing that I would recommend, and I don't care what the date is, but rather than doing that Thursday meeting on the 5th and then one just a couple of days later, do the next one the next week, whatever day, it doesn't matter, but that allows us, because we're trying to put the views out a week early, but by waiting that one extra week, that gives us a little more time to get the promotion out that, there's going to be a town hall. Here's the candidate forum dates and everything. And where if you have them so close together, you're talking about one on the 5th and then one on the 7th or 8th. That's what she had it like the 5th and the 8th. We don't really allow enough momentum for people to realize there's candidate forums happening and things like that.
Well, let me just respond. I had checked with Joanne about the dates. Now, there may have been, at any rate, I understand, Sonia, what you're talking about. First, I did canvass the candidates to see who could come. And the dates that I chose were the dates that allowed at least all of the candidates to come to one of the dates. I also wanted to do it early because I think people will start getting their ballots in the first week of October if all goes as we hope it will go, with an early mailing. There will, if we were to choose a weekday night, the second week, there would be several people who are going to be out of town, out of the country, several candidates. Now, could we make it? And then, of course, I chose Sunday to just give NNE or anyone else who's helping a chance to catch their breath between Thursday and Saturday. So my thought would be to consider going to the 7th. Because I did check my schedule of how people had responded. It looks like that would not change the availability. We could do the 7th. I will, of course, have to write to everyone with an oops subject line.
We can just say, yeah, we just.
Yeah,
need to
okay, so
confirm the town
we'll leave
hall.
that one alone for now. My only other thought is, see, I will come to, last year, I think I came to the candidate forums. I maybe just skipped. I was unaware there was a budget town hall, so it never even crossed my mind to think about adding that. And my only thought would be, is it too much? I mean, it's going to be like a 4-hour.
We've done it the last
How-
several years. I mean,
Budget town hall is probably, Joel will probably present for a half hour and then you'll just.
then we open.
And then with
it.
questions following.
Questions,
So it's about an hour.
hour and a half. We schedule an
I
hour
don't
and a
think
half.
it's, it depends upon how many people actually come.
Mhm.
I mean, this is any indication, it won't be many. So I don't,
What is any indication?
every meeting that we sit in this barn where it's empty.
Yeah, people got used to remote, I guess. They
No.
can't give it up. Well, I'm open to that. And so, but give me the proposed time frame if we do it on Saturday, because I know I suggested 2 to 4 on Sunday.
Well, so, okay, so last year we did 1 to 3 for the town hall and then 3:30 to 5:30 for the candidate forum. And like AJ says, we didn't use up that whole time. We were done by by 2:30. And we did actually have some pretty good questions last year. So I mean, conceivably, we could
AJ.
go 1 to 2:30 and start the candidate forum at 3 even. Go ahead, Linda.
And then do 3 to 5.
I'm gonna be the dog in the room here. I actually would go later in October. Please remember that the October issue is gonna have not only the bios, but the board vision statements. And I would think that it would be important for the members to see that before they come they may have questions then of the candidates seeing that. I don't know, are you going to be able to publish by this, before the 7th to have people have time to look at this whole thing that's all about all of this?
So we're,
I wonder if we're going too early.
so that's why I was suggesting the second one be a little bit later. So we talked to him as soon as we get this everything approved and so we'll send him this tomorrow. And I think Gail will send him like the candidate bios and photos, but we'll send
I've
him.
talked to him about that. We're all set with our deadlines.
Okay,
on
so
that.
Joanne will send him tomorrow this election booklet. And so, and he has almost everything then at that point for the views. They'll have that cutoff date of the 23rd for all the ads and the letters and everything. And then hopefully they'll get it printed, and we'll get it out at least that first week of October. Or, before that weekend is what we've asked him to try to shoot for early October. But again, I think having them really close together, I agree with Linda, it doesn't give momentum. The other thing is, it's fine for people to be out of town if you do a hybrid. If the second one is a hybrid, It worked really well. That's what we did before. It was one in person and the other was online.
So just for clarity's sake, that's not a hybrid.
I'm sorry, I
One,
said the
yeah,
wrong.
one event was in person and you had to be present in person to submit a question, but you could be viewing it online, and we had quite a large online viewing component at that time. I thought that was very helpful.
But you could.
The other thing is
Webinars, what I.
there were 14 candidates to go through, and we have many fewer this time.
We have
So
eight.
it's reasonable to expect it will take less time.
But we could set up the Zoom webinar. I said the wrong word.
Right. You meant that we would use one methodology and then the second
Right, 'cause then
methodology, just
people
not
could Call
simultaneous.
in, ask their questions. The candidates can respond in real time to the question or whatever the format is. We did, that's what we did last year. Because
I mean, I would love to go back to Zoom meetings.
what'd you say?
Said, let's go back to Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say a few more things, though. I was present for both of the candidate forums last year. I did not care for the remote because the candidates were also remote. I mean, I had no sense really of who or what they were. There's nothing like actually seeing someone in person. Number one, I think it's informative, very informative. Number two, but I will consider, I'm open, don't have my mind totally made up, although I didn't anticipate this because I think I saw Sonia's email about 6:30 as I'm, trying to get here. That I have canvassed the people though, and so I chose dates early enough that people will get ballots and want to vote. That was one thing. I felt last year I had to hold off voting because I really didn't know the people who are running. So I wanted to do it early in that way. Now I've lost my thought here. Oh, and that I want to maximize the number of candidates who can come. So again, as I'm saying, I've talked to them. They've all sent me their availability or lack thereof. So I don't know that, I guess I would like more time to think about it, to talk to the committee and any committee.
I just want to agree to the 7th.
Sorry.
That's my big concern so that we can,
Time.
yes, because.
So you would like to do it on the 7th, and apart from that, you would leave it
Because of
to
the town
NNE,
hall,
right,
right?
the format. Because the budget meeting then would be in person. Is that your thought?
Right, that would be in person and then the candidates, that could
Mhm.
be in person that same day
Yeah.
too, and it'd be on Saturday. We'd have staff here and we'd be set up for the whole day.
Well, I don't see that as changing my issue about the availability of the candidates. The 7th or the 8th was going to be the same, and I just thought we would need time to catch our breath.
So like I said, last year we did 1 to 3 for the town hall and 3:30 to 5:30 for the candidate forum.
That candidate forum had a set of questions that was put together, and members of the community were invited to provide questions, but it was a prepared set of questions. There were no interactive questions, I don't think. And we got through all those questions so quickly that I then had to make up questions. And I had been working for the association for about 2.5 minutes at that point, and it seemed to go okay, but it could have been a better.
What do you like best
But
about?
let me just say on that, NNE has a small work group that will not include we have 2 NNE members who are also candidates. It will not include them to work on the format, the questions, and et cetera. And we haven't had a chance to meet yet. and
We don't
things
want
moving very
any.
quickly.
we-
So
So
I would
NNE
like
should
you
be-
to leave that to NNE, the formatting.
The board is also responsible for the integrity of the election. And so when we actually talked to Michael about moving the responsibility for the candidate forum to NNE, we talked about that we'd like it to follow what we did last year. And that ensures that the questions are not biased they're not prejudiced towards any particular.
I understand that,
candidate.
Sonia, but I think that we share that value.
Well, based on the social media posts coming from members of your committee, I don't think we do share that value.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. And I think you should let NNE make a proposal, and then if you want to make adjustments to it, we could consider. You know, we do have a role to play, and I think that that role involves, you know, coming forward with a plan. And, you know, I really would beg you guys to believe that I care about this being fair. I deeply care about that. I don't want gotcha questions. I don't want trick questions. I just wouldn't go along with that. And I don't think anyone in our committee wants that. So let me come up with a proposal. We have a little bit of time. We're going to meet, NNE meets on the 25th. You know, as long as we're okay with the dates, I think we have a little bit of time to talk about the format.
Stu, you had your hand up.
Thanks, AJ. First of all, I'd like to say Joanne did an excellent job with the candidate forum last year. It was awesome, and on her on the fly questions were great. But I'd also like to AJ's point about participation, bring up a couple things about some demographics. First of all, that weekend is the Canadian Thanksgiving, so a lot of about a third of our community are probably going to be involved in other activities because they're Canadian. And also on that Saturday is the opening for the Winter Golf Series. The winter golf events typically take place in the morning, starting around 9 o'clock. So if a forum or a town hall meeting could be held a little bit later in the afternoon, we'd get more participation from the golf community as well. And it's also technically the end of boating season, so all of the people from the marina are taking their boats out of the water that weekend. You know, it's important that we include as much as the community as we possibly can. And, you know, if we could take things into consideration when they're setting dates and times that impact a significant portion of the community, it would be great if we did that.
My perception is the Canadians leave around Labor Day. But what is Canadian Thanksgiving? Is that October 7th or 8th?
But it's that weekend.
Mhm.
Not as.
The technical holiday is Monday the 9th, but that entire weekend, it's, you know, it's kind of like the US Thanksgiving, you know, it starts on Thursday and goes all weekend long.
Mhm.
Well, I can go either the 7th or the 14th. I'm flexible. I just want it on the same day like we've done. But I was trying to respect Gail's request to try to do it early. I understood that too, because then we're pushing and people may be holding those ballots and then we're not getting them mailed in early. So
No, I agree with that, Sonia, also, and with Gail's proposal to do it early. What I'm suggesting is, you know, maybe we could start it a little bit later in the afternoon so we can involve the golf community. And if there's a potential for people to participate over Zoom, then we may get more people, the Canadians coming in who are actually on holiday that weekend.
what time?
But Sonia doesn't want to do a budget town hall over Zoom, correct? You would want to do that in person.
We have to do it in person because it's part of the board's obligation. So we actually have to do that in person.
Yeah.
So what time are you thinking, Stu? I mean, again, it will probably be an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying? We leave a 30-minute buffer in there. So if it runs a little bit long, it's okay. And then we start the candidate forum,
Mhm.
you know, so what time are you thinking?
Well, I would think that if we started the budget town hall around 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and then the candidate forum after that, then we'd probably get more participation.
So,
I'm sorry, Stu, I didn't hear
I
what time you suggested.
No, that's
so he's saying like we could start at 3 for the town hall and
Mhm.
then we could say 5 o'clock for the candidate forum.
On a Saturday night.
You know, I mean, there's probably no good answer because you start getting later into Saturday evening, then people with families are doing stuff with their families on, Saturday evenings and stuff. But, I'm just throwing ideas out to try to get more involvement because it would be great if the community would actually show up to these things.
Hey, Stu, this is Linda. Just question for you. Is 3:30 to 5:30 on that Saturday for the candidate forum? Would that work for most of the community? You're just talking about starting the budget town hall a little different, correct?
Yeah, for the candidate forum, that would probably be fine because most people are going to be finishing up a golf event. It's getting late enough in the day. If somebody's out working on their boat, they're probably tired of doing it by that time of the day. So, hopefully they come in and, other than me going up into Canada to buy things at a discount on the Canadian Thanksgiving, I really don't know what Canadians do on their Thanksgiving weekend. Tybee might be more of a person to address that than I am. I'm just trying to think of ways to get more of the community involved.
I feel like we want to be done by 5:30. Like that's dinner time
Yeah, I would agree with that, AJ.
for a lot of people. I mean, little kid families, it's even earlier.
There's
usually.
only 5 of us. Probably if you started at 3:30, you'd be done by 5 or it's not gonna take that long. Joanne went through it well last time. And look how many of us there were up there. That was Betsy.
Yeah, we didn't need the whole 2 hours. We were vamping at the end to try and fill it. I mean, we made good use of the time, I think. But what if we did do a hybrid event? Because there's enough time that we can plan to have staff available to support questions being submitted on the web. And then we could just develop a protocol for that. So people weren't just, viewing, but there was a reason for them to log into the webinar and submit questions through the Q&A feature. That's another thing to consider is because there are so many conflicts that weekend, maybe going all out and doing a hybrid event as we have in the past would be worth it to get engagement. I mean, we could support that, not on a bi-monthly basis for this meeting, but certainly for a once a year thing like that, it would be important enough.
I was just gonna say, as far as Thanksgiving, I mean, the Canadians, they're either gonna be here or most of them are gonna be home anyway. So they're either gonna watch it on Zoom or they're gonna check it out later on. I don't think worrying about the Canadians that particular weekend is a factor. I mean, the dinners are any night that weekend. We're not as rigid in which day we have our turkey or our ham. But don't worry about the Canadians. They're probably not going to be here for it anyway.
Well, and you make a good point, Tommy, which is that people can watch this on repeat. If they really aren't available that weekend, we'll post that recording. They won't be able to interact with candidates by submitting a question, but they can see it. So that's a good point.
Too many options.
So where are we at then?
Yeah, where are we at?
Scheduling.
Well, could we consider
I think this.
reducing the time frame? In other words, we were talking about 10th of an hour and et cetera. How about the budget town hall being an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half max, and then the candidate forum similarly? If the town hall has to be in person, then obviously I'd like then the candidate forum to be in person. It makes sense to me. And then in that case, maybe the other earlier one could be remote. I didn't anticipate having to talk in detail about this. So, I'd like to talk to the committee as well.
Right. Well, if we take AJ's end time of 5:30 and we take Gail's proposal of an hour and a half for each segment and we run them back to back, that means we could start at 2:30, go till 4 for the budget town hall, and then from 4 to 5:30 for the candidate forum.
Except we we need a break between the two.
Just do an hour and 15 for the budget and a 15-minute break.
Okay,
got 2
now
hour
just
and a
go
half
ahead and cut the
segments.
budget presentation off.
I mean, I would imagine the budget.
I would like to have an hour and a half for the.
But we start at 1:30 and compromise.
Yeah, I think.
Or two would give us an hour, a half hour break as well.
That too, and then you at least have like a 30-minute break between the two, probably.
Okay, this sounds possible.
Does 2 o'clock work for golfers, Stu?
I think there would be a significant number of golfers that would be able to make it at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, that. Say we have up to an hour and a half on the budget. Sorry, if we start at
Then we
2.
have refreshments.
Yeah, and refreshments, cake. And so we start at 2, we go to at the most max to 3:30. Then there's a 30-minute little break to
Take a break.
socialize and get reset up. And then start the candidate forum at,
From 4 to 5:30.
yeah.
I think that works.
I think that's good.
And then decide on a second date later. Let's get this.
Well, the second date, no, I think we have
To
the second date
3:30,
already in place for the
5:30.
What
Okay.
day is
Saturday.
this?
Saturday, the 7th.
Saturday, the 7th.
Locked,
the
locked and
second.
loaded.
Then she.
Quorum.
Care.
We want to have like, we're thinking Zoom then.
You mean at the Thursday night one on the 5th? I'd like to think about it.
I don't think we should have one on the 5th if we're having one on the 7th. That seems that seems like a big ask for someone who's not even on the board.
Can we pick the second one another night while everybody gets a chance to think about it?
Well, we've got our availability, but we also have the candidates. Remember, I will need to go back at my little chart that I have. I know that part of it is that following week, I think 3 or 4 of them are out of the country, out of town, whatever. So let me go back and look. I don't think we need to set that date in this meeting tonight, but we could maybe set it soon.
I think we should have both of them after the budget presentation. So having one on the 5th, you haven't heard the budget yet.
And perhaps availability will be assisted by by moving the format to Zoom for that second meeting. So even if they're out of town, they could log into a meeting for an hour and a half
Participate.
as opposed to, having to be here in the
You
den.
know, because you were talking about polling, then maybe ask like, what if we offered this, can you participate? Maybe. I think that's a good idea that we just go ahead and commit to the town hall and the candidate forum on the 7th, and then, yeah. The other one will be sometime after that.
Yeah, I do think a week gap.
I could
would
probably
be-
get back to everyone soon. I'm sorry, though, I sent that email to the candidates, but
I
so
do
it
think
is.
a week between the meetings would be good. I don't know. I mean, can't speak for the candidates, but for myself, like, my wife would be like, what, you have 2 nights this week and you're leaving me to do everything by myself kind of thing. So, I know Josh got kids, so. But
I don't want to make a recommendation for the second meeting on the fly like this. I'd like to just really redo the calendar. We could probably do it later, especially I think if the second one is remote and then we have the first in person. That will be our mini financial candidate gala. If we have,
And we'll
also
be
good to give the community time who can't make it to watch the video, and then maybe they can submit a question even if they can't make the second one, or they can make the second one kind of thing, give them time to digest. Maybe, you could see some more meaningful questions in the second one if they can digest what the candidates speak to at the first one.
I could probably let you know in the next day or two after I study this and just check with the committee.
Last time, people couldn't ask a specific candidate a question. And I really think that's useful to be able to say, I have a question for so-and-so.
I will say, I liked the way that all the candidates kind of had to answer the questions. Again, this is all just subjective, like what we talked about, but because especially more well-known candidates, then will tend to be the ones that everybody's asking the questions of. And then the candidates that people don't know, they don't really get the same quality questions and everything, because people just don't know what to ask them.
Okay.
That's my only concern.
But asking a question and then asking all of the candidates, because there's not that many this time.
Yeah,
We have five. We have five.
It's not that bad an idea.
no, I
But
think
let's
that's a good
concentrate
idea.
on the date issue though, and then I can share with the board nomination elections recommendations on the actual format. We're going to meet to discuss it and we haven't met yet.
All right, so we're settled on October 7th, 2 to 3:30, half-hour break, 4 to 5:30. Second one to TBD. All right. Any other people need to speak on this issue? We're adjourned.
AJ, can I ask one question real quick? I just have of Joanne and I apologize. The launch dock, when will they actually start work? I don't think that was included in the Tyler's response that they were collected.
I don't know. I'll have to ask him, but then I can respond to everyone with that.
Okay, that's fine. I just realized I didn't think that was in there and it's like, well, are they gonna try to do this here or?
Or not, but I'll find out.
Thank you.
No, I'm just saying, like, I mean, it wasn't up to